where you find out friends are not walking the talk, it's pretty devastating. And I think you look for people who are really grounded in their values and very consistent. And I'm lucky to have friends like that.
There are key people who are still in my life that I consider to be my closest friends and have been my friends for, years and years and years.
I make sure my people eat first. And there's been seasons that's literal. Like, I'm making sure my people eat first. I'm paying them more than I'm paying myself. I'm taking care of them more than I'm taking care of myself.
To find that meaningful connection and to find those people of quality that can be those, 5 people that you spend the most time with. And I think there's ways to do that.
Elevator friends, some go up with you and some will take you down.
The biggest green flags are people who are your cheerleaders in rooms when you are not there. You need to consider, how are you speaking about other people in rooms when they're not there? Are you advocating for them? Are you putting their name up there? Okay, there's an amazing quote that says you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I think at this stage of our life, it's not about how many people are still at our table, but who is left at our table.
Absolutely. I think friendships is 100% at this season of life quality over quantity. And I've always loved the old quote, right? Like, some friendships are for a season, some are for a reason, and some are for a lifetime. And I know years ago, somebody also talked about elevator friends. Some go up with you and some will take you down if you let them. So I think it's interesting, for myself being in my 40s, yourself approaching your 40s, to look at, what friendships serve us and how they serve us and how to look at them. Because I think, I've been through a couple of phases where I've purged friendships. I've just outgrown them. And I think it's interesting. Like, for you, why do you find that you've made the choices for the friends who are still with you? Or do you think it has been intentional?
Well, I think it's, as we get older and to your point, as we're entering into our 40s, there's an intentionality that comes along with your friendships. Studies show that by age 25, that's when you're the number of your friendships or the quantity of your friends kind of peaks. And that's because you're in proximity to these people all the time, right? We're going to high school and, you're surrounded by these people every day. And so naturally you're going to have more friends. And then you go to university and kind of same thing. And then, as you get into your 40s, and especially if you're an entrepreneur, you're not surrounded by as many people typically on a day-to-day. So you need to be much more intentional about how you're showing up for these friendships. And so for me, I think, there were definitely seasons of my life when I had a tremendous amount of what I would have considered to be friends. And so, and as time goes on, it's interesting to see and there were people that I was like, oh, I'm going to be friends with them until the end of time. We're going to, grow old together. But, now sitting here at 40 in a couple of months, there are key people who are still in my life that I consider to be my closest friends and have been my friends for, years and years and years. And we have deep connections and history together. And not necessarily that I speak to them every day, but that they, if I needed to call them for something, would be there in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I think there are red flags and green flags, which we can chat about when it comes to friendships. But I thought it was really funny that, it's not just marriages that go through the 7-year itch, right? It's friendships as well. So they say if you're still friends with somebody after 7 years, they're likely that they're going to stay at your table, which I thought was really interesting because 7 years is like a cycle, right? That you grow and you change and you see who changes
with you, right?
So
I think it's important probably also to talk about in an age where we have the illusion of connection with social media. Everybody's like, oh, I have all of these friends, right?
Sure.
Like, because you're watching into these people's lives. So you feel this illusion of connection when the reality is it doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's true. How many times I've been at a conference and think I've met somebody and they're like, no, we've never, I'm like, really? Because we're on each other. Yeah, it's just popped up in the algorithm. But I think, you know, as we grow as people, I mean, friendships are a really important mirror for us, just like our, you know, intimate relationships are an important mirror for us. And for me, it's like over time, you know, when I started to learn about boundaries or I started to learn about trust, you know, you learn things a little like into deeper layers. And I think it was interesting with family and then, you know, love relationships and eventually with friendships to realize that, you know, if you don't have people around you who are supportive, who want to see you win, even if you're winning at times when they're not, right? Like I know my good friends, it's like they're like family. We call them our, you know, our, what is the word?
Chosen family.
Chosen family. They come to Thanksgiving, they come to Christmas. And I mean, those are people where when I've needed them, they've 100% been there for me. I hope they feel that I've 100% been there for them. And it's like, we don't need to talk every single day, but I fully trust them. I trust that they have my best interest. They know I have good intentions too. Like my friends know I wouldn't do something to be hurtful or to be mean or intentionally ever harm them. I just wouldn't. And they give me fully that benefit of the doubt. And I think it's really important. Like I'd rather have deep, trusting, long-term relationships than have a whole bunch of acquaintances where we say something to someone's face, then we say something completely otherwise. And I think we'll get into the red flags and the green flags. You know, there's social media, there's all sorts of things that happen. But end of the day, like if somebody doesn't genuinely have your best interest, even if they can say to you, like, this is really hard because I'm having a tough time, but I'm so friggin' happy for you and I can't wait to be back up there. It's interesting too. Like we'll talk about green flags and red flags, at least for me, like in friendships, but I always think it's important to start with what type of friend are you being, right? Like for me, I think people over life have been like, you should trust me, you should trust me. And usually the people who said you should trust me were because they weren't trustworthy. I think it's important to like, what type of a friend are we being? How much capacity do we have for people? I'd rather focus on being trustworthy than ask people to trust me, right? And I think that's an important difference. But I don't know about you. Like at times I've been naive to friendships, you know, particularly having a business and having a mentality. Like for me, I was always taught as a leader, like I make sure my people eat first. And there's been seasons that's literal. Like I'm making sure my people eat first. I'm paying them more than I'm paying myself. I'm taking care of them more than I'm taking care of myself. And you've seen this behind the scenes. Like you're working late at night, you're working all the time, you're stressed. And it's like, all because you're putting other people first. And I think it's really interesting in friendships when you find out that, first of all, it's unhealthy to put other people's well-being ahead of your own because you have to be a healthy leader. That's something I've had to work on. But I think it's also that when you realize that you're not saying the truthful thing or you're not living the truthful way because you know that this particular friend is going to be upset. And then when you actually have that conversation, you realize, oh, wow, they weren't a friend. Right? They're not willing to have that conversation. They're not willing to do that differently. So they were actually only in my life, whether it's friends in work or it's friends in, you know, the industry or friends at home. They were only there because they were benefiting of you, not because they wanted to have a reciprocal give and take.
Right. And I think that like in any relationship, you can identify who is a giver and who is a taker, right? And so givers are often prey to takers, and that's the same in a you know romantic relationship or a friendship or a business relationship, in any. But realistically, with respect to friends, I think, you know, the biggest green flags are people who are your cheerleaders in rooms when you are not there, right? Like, how are people talking about you in rooms when you're not there? And I think on the flip side, you need to consider, how are you speaking about other people in rooms when they're not there? Are you advocating for them? Are you putting their name up there? And also, you know, are you willing to have difficult conversations? And I think that's something that true friends are, right? Like when you are not on the right path, is your, like, are your people going to tell you like, hey, you know, let's have a tough talk because there are some things that you're doing that we're concerned about. And so that's a really interesting thing to consider. And I think that as you get older, that's why the number of people at your table become less and less, but of higher quality, right?
Yeah, and absolutely. And we've talked about this before. I mean, your friends are kind of your guardians of not your personal values, but they influence it. And I think that's why that Harvard study is so powerful, right? You're the average of the top 5 people around you, because the reality is when shit hits the fan in life, which it sometimes does, you're going to go to those people and say, I think I should do this, or what should I do, or I should do this. And those people are either going to enable you to do, default self, which is kind of like, maybe get jealous or retaliate or lie or steal or do something stupid or justify it. Be like, oh, I'm justified. Like, I don't need to, do what I said I do. I don't need to be in integrity. Or your friends are going to help you remember who you are at your best self. And I think you have those friends in business and you have those friends personally. And I mean, I've talked about it before. If you have the wrong friends around you, man, you're going to make a lot of really bad decisions because they will egg you on and often take a small problem and make it into a massive issue. So you really have to trust the people and be discerning with who you give your ear to. Like for years, I'm like, I don't give my ear to everyone. If you're going to be jealous, you're competitive, or you're projecting, or you don't have my best interests at heart, I'm not taking in your advice. Like it's just not valuable to me. Or if our values are very, very, very different.
And I think it also, like for you, like you're, despite the fact that you are very much in the public, you're pretty private. Like you keep a pretty tight inner circle, right? And that was something that was interesting when we got together, because I'm kind of the opposite. Like I've always had, or historically, I've had a larger circle, right? And I mean, it's dwindled down as well. Like, obviously being sober has had an effect on how big my circle is. But what I love about you and your group of friends and being around them is it very much is like you guys are all sisters, right? Like they're, But what about, do you have capacity, or are you searching for new or open to new friendships? And I think a lot of women, because we're feeling disconnected, right? Like as connected as we are to our devices, we're feeling a lack of connection and loneliness in real life, right? And so I think a lot of women out there, and just last week I was talking to one of my best friends, and she's moved away to another town and kind of isolated, and she is a fierce businesswoman, super successful, and she was talking to me and she's like, I can't make friends. Like, I don't know how to make friends. I don't know where to find these friends. And it becomes more and more difficult as we get older to find, I think, friends, because everybody's just, having this like illusion of friendship online, but like those deep connections and those meaningful conversations, which are so important. Like I can't think of anything that has carried me through to this, to where I am today, more so than my female friends. Like these are the people who empower you, who lift you up, who pick you up when you are at your lowest. And so what about all of these women who are out there wanting that connection but not knowing how to find it? And are you open to those connections, or are you comfortable with the number of people at your table?
I think it is harder being older to make new friends. I think we also often have less capacity. I mean, I run a business. I have a big team. I mean, there's a lot of clients. Like energetically, there's a big container that I'm working with, and I have to be really careful not to be overstimulated, or I take on people's energy. I have to be really careful with that. So I think, yes, I am. I think it's also, you need to be careful. Like I know a lot of women who end up in friendship circles professionally that respectfully, like they are not healthy. There's bullying, there's judgment, there's mean girl all over the place. And it's like, you have to be in with these people, because if you don't, they're going to target you. And that happens frenemies. And that happens as women in certain industries. And I think it's really sad, but it happens. And the only way to not is to try to live something different. But I think it takes time to see somebody's true colors, right? That they're walking the walk. And the reality is that you can have friendships that you think are good, and then things are exposed, right? And you have to make decisions. So like for me, I've had good friends that I thought I could really trust, and then found out things happen. And when trust's broken, you can't be that close to me anymore. You lose proximity. Like that's it. And sometimes those friends give us a gift. And I want to say this because, you know, there's two ways that people react to difficult things in life, whether it's like abuse in a personal relationship, it's something difficult in a friendship, maybe it's something that happened in business. Like there's somebody I heard tell a story again and again and again about somebody doing something negative to them in business. And I always took it to heart. I was like, oh, that must have been so awful and so, you know, difficult. And then I watched them do 10 times worse to almost every single person I know. And I was like, okay, wait a minute. You either are going to use something as an excuse to perpetuate it, and therefore you become the problem that you hated so much. Like it literally changes your behavior. Or you say, okay, yes, this exists, and I'm going to live something different. Because when you go through things like that, where you find out friends are not walking the talk, it's pretty devastating. And I think you look for people who are really grounded in their values and very consistent. And I'm lucky to have friends like that. So, I mean, am I open to friends? Yeah, absolutely. And I think this last year, this is why I invited so many different women from other places, largely the US this year in Summit, to bring people in that I felt aligned with. I sought other professional organizations because I just saw such a problem, you know, locally in prior associations. So I was grateful for that. I think there are the people who are trying to live the change, but it's not easy to figure out who is a true friend. Trust takes time. It takes consistency.
Yeah, you need that time. You need to see how people are showing up for you, and there needs to be that reciprocity, right? And we talk about this all the time, like sacred reciprocity. Absolutely. How you are showing up for others is going to mirror how they show up for you, and if it doesn't, well, then perhaps it's time to wish them well if the relationship isn't serving you anymore. But it's so interesting to me. And this happens so often in female friendships, this cattiness and this mean girl mentality that we all, you know, or at least I thought was done in high school. I haven't really had a lot of experience with it, but I've watched you over the past couple years be in situations where, you know, things were said or done that were like extremely hurtful and by people that you trusted. And of course that's going to make you put your guard up. And I think that a lot of women have gone through the same thing. So it's like, how do you navigate that?
Well, and even it's not like friendship, it's professional. I think it's different. Like I've watched, you know, men work with men because they rally together to create something strong. You know, I've mentored people who literally like their only existence in coaching was with our programs, like I've fully mentored them into something that they wanted and watched them become unbelievably entitled and taking our content and lying to people. And it's like, you just look at this and you're like, it's everything the opposite of the values that supported you to become successful. Right. And people, even in friendship, saying like, you know, nobody can make me enforce my word. Right. Maybe even the law can't make me enforce my word. And I'm like, wow, like, OK. So I think it's really important that, you know, friendship is a sacred circle. And I think we need to initially, it's not about what other people are doing. You know, I really questioned myself with everything that happened last year. Was I being a good leader? Was I somehow enabling this behavior? Like what happened? Right. And it turned out there was kind of a gatekeeper and whatnot. We don't need to get into that. But the reality is, friendship is the sacred circle that it's like, how are we showing up? And the reality is when you are around the wrong people and you're around the wrong associations, they enable each other. I watched leaders I used to have so much respect for sit there and say that they were not responsible for their words, their actions, the way they influence things. And I was heartbroken. I was heartbroken by it. I was like, how can you show up like that? Like, how can it be so self-serving? But it also really opened my eyes that I've outgrown those circles. I'm not meant to be there anymore. And I opened the door for growth, and I hope that there's growth, but it's not safe for
potentially for other relationships,
other women, right? Who are still.
Yeah,
and there was bullying. Like if you're gonna like this person, like social media, untagging, tagging, like blocking. And I'm like, we are not in high school. We are not. Like Mean Girl ended a long time ago.
Yeah, we need to do better, I think. And I think it's for me, like I am very open.
Yeah, you'll just tell people off, whereas I process it and try to get clear and make sure my values are aligned, and then I have a conversation.
Yeah, there's like, it's too long. Like, it's too long.
But
like,
I need to be okay in it. Like, I need to make sure I'm clear and I'm not overreacting and I'm not judging. Like, I take a lot of time to process, which
whereas
has
I'm
been
like dead to me.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Jane's just like, yeah, you're dead. That's it. Like, not physically, but you're not in my life. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not, one way is not better than the other. And for sure, like, I have maybe been hasty in some of these relationships that I cut off, and, you know, with my dead to me attitude. Like, some of my friends will joke, like, this list is getting quite long. Like,
I remember
Jane's dead to me list is quite long, but it's like, for me, I know how I show up, right? I am very clear about how I show up as a friend. And so if that is not reciprocated, and I don't, you know, that doesn't mean I need the same amount of time or energy or whatever, you know, the currency may be, the energy exchange. I don't need that, but I do need trust. And so when trust and loyalty and when trust and loyalty in a friendship are broken, then for me, it's no longer a friendship. I don't need to hang on to it. I don't need to check their social media. I actually don't give a shit. Like, they are literally, like, I have blinders when it comes to that. And, you know, that, you know, may be a bad thing, but it also allows me to stay open. Like, I don't dwell on it. It doesn't sit with me in the same, I don't feel the heaviness of it.
Well, I think part of it is I wait longer to act with friendship. I give a lot of grace. I do. And I always think, and I've talked about this in therapy, like, I always think the best of it. And even now, like, I'm like, I don't think they're a bad person. Their behavior could shift. I can't be around their behavior right now. Whereas I think, like, you see it and you act on it. And it's better the way you do it, because I give a lot of grace. And I found, unfortunately, the most toxic friendships, like, when you give more grace, it's like there's just more that goes on, because they know that
there's more resentment and there's more like, you know,
and I don't
feelings.
And I think it's interesting though with women friendships, like, because, like, you know, we're in a personal relationship, but you're
my best friend.
Yeah, like, but we cheer each other on. And I think in business, like, again, there are certain circles women are doing this very well. So there's no way I'm going to say they're not. We're capable of it. We're great collaborators. We're amazing. Like, I'm part of Red Threads in the US. There are women who show up for other women, like, admirably in ways that like influence me to do much, much better. And I'm so thankful for those examples. But the reality is that you get in the wrong circle, the very people who will say, let's collaborate and I'll help you, are the people that the minute it's their turn to help you back, they'll cut you off and literally make it look like you did something. And that's really, really difficult. I think for me, there's certain circles or women's groups, whatever, that I've leaned into and really contributed my time, my money, my energy. And it's been like, you do this, we'll do this. And it's like, I do this. And they don't do it back, or they don't do it back in really, really disrespectful ways. And I think it's important to, in a friendship, people see each other. Like, everybody's going to sometimes have the green eye, they call it, right? Like, envy. Like, everyone's sometimes going to be, what is it called? Like,
eye? What?
Yeah, like, everybody sometimes is jealous or envious or competitive or judging themselves. That's human.
Right?
And in a friendship, you can say that. You can say, like, that's why I do all that processing, because I'm able to be like, wait a minute, like, I literally bring it in. What's this about? Is this about you? Are you jealous? What's this about? And I process it so I can say, yeah, you know, I was feeling a bit sad because this didn't work out and you had that, and I'm so friggin' happy for you, but I was just feeling weird. And I can say it, right? Versus feeling those things and acting on them. I think, like, to me, big red flag, as adults, we have to own our stuff. Like, if you're feeling a certain way, you need to decide why you're feeling it. Acting on it, that is a completely different realm, like, to me. And if you act on it, show up and say sorry. Like, I think as women, the reason we can't be vulnerable is because somebody hits your hand when you, like, hey, here's how I'm feeling, like, boom, right? So you have to be someone who creates safe spaces, and you have to be able to recognize when you're not in a safe space.
And I would say, like, because, so for instance, I moved to Durham region from Toronto. I knew not a soul except my wife at the time. Okay. And so I lacked community, right? Like, in a very big way. I felt very alone, very isolated in this place where I didn't know a soul. And so, and also, like, although it's a 45-minute drive, you learn very quickly that even your closest friends, because everybody has a lot going on in life, right? So even your closest friends who you know, they're still my closest friends, but are they making the drive out here? No, not really. Right. So it was very clear to me that I needed to make some friends.
Yeah.
Like we're social humans. Like we need interaction with people. We need to feel seen. We need to feel heard. We need to share our perspectives. And so that was a very vulnerable place for me to be like, oh shit, I'm going to start over and make new friends. Right. Yeah. And so, it was a humbling experience for sure as well. Right. Like, and so I needed to join things. And that's kind of how I did it, because like new friends are not coming to knock on your door to be like, hey, do you want to play? Because we're not 5 anymore, right? Like we aren't neighbors and I have a shiny bike and you have a shiny bike and let's go ride them together. It's like, how are you going to find like-minded humans, right? And so for me, when I moved out here and I was all alone, finding like-minded humans meant I joined a service club.
Yeah.
And where I've made some of the most, incredible connections with like-minded humans who their values, their core values are giving back to the communities that they serve. And so that was, a really important decision that I made in order to expand my friend group and have some more people of quality sit at my table, right? And then it was like, okay, well then at work, who are we not just having, conversations beside the coffee maker with, but like, who are your people? Like you need to find your people and find people who, not only their values align with yours, but maybe their interests align with yours. So if you're feeling lonely and you're feeling isolated,
like a hiking group
or a run club or go to the gym. And so like, it's so amazing to me, like since I started, my fitness journey a couple years ago, I started at F45 and the community that is there has been so amazing. And the largely women at this particular gym, the way that they cheer each other on and lift each other up, like these are my people, right? So it's like, where are you going to find your people? Because, just doom scrolling on Facebook and feeling, bad about yourself because of the life that other people, are putting on Facebook. This is not people's real lives also. To find that meaningful connection and to find those people of quality that can be those, 5 people that you spend the most time with. And I think there's ways to do that in a really healthy way.
Yeah, absolutely. And connecting with people. I think it's interesting. Like for me, I'm more like, I'm an INTJ in Myers-Briggs. Like I have a deep internal world. Like I can get lost in my internal world or my imagination and building something.
You don't need to see people for months.
And I have deep connections with people when I have them. I don't know how to do surface. I don't know how to do small talk. Like I literally joke that at my old cottage, I would sit there on the deck and try to listen to the neighbors, and the neighbor would be like, so what's going on? And they would literally talk for 40 minutes. And in my opinion, they said absolutely nothing. And I have no idea how they did it. Like I'm like, how? Like,
well, we go to events and you're like, I need you to come so you can speak to people.
Yeah, I don't do small talk. So like we go to the gym and I go to the gym to work out and renew my energy to do what I do in my day and with my family and my close people because I require that. Whereas you have capacity at the gym to like connect and make friends. So I think you have to know who you are. Like I make friends with people when I'm hiking or when I'm out doing things or business, when I really admire people. I'm like, oh, I want to be friends with them, right? Like I'll reach out and nurture that. And I think it's just different. You have to know who you are.
Right.
Like if you're an introvert, you're not a full extrovert, but you're more than me.
I'm an extroverted introvert. I need people. It doesn't drain me in the same way. Social interactions don't drain me in the same way that it does others, right? So I think for people who are like you're right. It's deeper, meaningful connections that have to be built on this solid
understanding,
trust. And for other people who are just who are maybe a little bit more extroverted and missing that sense of community, it's putting yourself out there and being vulnerable and understanding that that your people are out there and they're also feeling that vulnerable and that sense of loneliness and that lack of connection, and searching for people like them to build that with.
And I think that's why, like, coming out of last year, I built the Audacious Leader program, right? Because it's exactly that. I was like, if I'm feeling like this, if I'm feeling so let down, like, there must be other people who are like, how do we navigate this? Because there are amazing friendships and they're so rich and they're so amazing. And you have to decide, am I going to be a product of difficult things that happen, or am I going to be a contributor to amazing things that can happen? And I feel the same. Those people are always out there. It's just, where are we going to connect with them? And doing something new gives us new energy. It's like rejuvenating, right? So
builds our confidence as well, right?
Yeah.
And so I think your people are out there. Ensure that those 5 people that are still sitting at your table are of quality and are, you know, have those values and attributes that you aspire to as well, right? Because it is so important.
Yeah, and friendships, look for the friendships that are going to grow with you, right? Like, I've grown immensely, and my friends are still my close friends because they didn't require me to stay back or stay in a certain way. They were there just to cheer me on, and I was for them. So I know I have that back. So like you said, be in rooms, say great things about people, cheer other people on, because people are going to do it back for you, and you're going to solidify, right, those deeper relationships, which for me, that's where it's at, but that's just my personality.